Porsche doesn't build everyday sports cars. It builds sports cars for everyday use. Models like this one, the 911 Cabriolet. Open-top driving is integral to the Porsche legend, dating all the way back to the convertible 356 of 1948 and its descendant, the 550 Spyder. Will this 7th generation 911 Cabrio be as sought after in half a century's time? Don't bet against it. The 911 Cabriolet. Enthusiasts take its existence for granted today, but in truth it took them a very long time to come to terms with the idea of a fully open-top version of this iconic sports car. Almost as long, in fact, as it took Porsche to create one in the first place. You can understand why. After all, the easiest way to spoil the handling balance of any vehicle is to chop the top off it, something Stuttgart's engineers were very nervous about doing. 3 years after the 911 Coupe's original launch in 1963, they bought us a compromise solution in the form of a Targa model, a kind of halfway house between coupe and convertible, which used an ugly stainless steel roll bar to preserve that all-important torsional rigidity. But it wasn't enough to dull a clamour that continued over the next 15 years for a proper open top. Finally, in 1982, as production of the second generation G-Series model wound towards its close, the factory at last felt confident enough to give us a proper 911 Cabriolet. Initially, this model was seen as a softer type of 911, the kind of car likely to appeal to people who might otherwise buy sporting Grand Tourers like Mercedes SL or maybe a 6 Series BMW. But as the 911 generations came and went, the factory continually perfected the Cabriolet concept, and by the time of the launch of the 6th generation 997 model series in 2004, there was virtually no discernible difference in the handling stiffness of fixed and soft top models. In fact, just about the only thing that was missing from the fully open version was the iconic curving 911 roofline. With the launch of this 7th generation 991 series version in late 2011, fresh convertible top technology enabled even that to be added to Cabriolet models. Never before have Cabrio and Coupe been so similar. And never has the 911 been better, with fundamental changes that have gone deeper than any since the old air-cooled versions. Potentially, it all adds up to a recipe able to bring us one of the most desirable open-top sports cars ever made. Let's put it to the test. So, let me tell you how it is. You settle down into the most driver-focused cockpit that the industry can offer, then slot this car-shaped key into the ignition. The engine fires with a guttural roar unmistakably belonging to a flat 6 Porsche, then settles down into the usual pulsing beat, and you're ready to go. Set off in this open-top 911, and you quickly realise that with this generation model, there's more reason than ever to choose the Cabriolet version. Not only is the roof smarter and more sophisticated than ever before, but the option to do without it enables you to better hear one of the most charismatic engine notes the industry can now offer. It's a uniquely configured boxer unit as before, but now you can properly revel in its oral fireworks thanks to the standard fitment of what Porsche engineers call a sound symposer, there to emphasise the engine's distinctive sound when you activate the standard sport mode. The whole thing will entertain you even more if you've stretched to the optional sports exhaust system I've got here with its 2 double tailpipes. Tap this center console switch and the engine note goes from barnstorming to ballistic. You'll enjoy the sensation hugely even with the roof up, but repeat the process with it lowered. The fabric top goes down in just 13 seconds at speeds of up to 31 miles an hour, and it's really something else. You don't even have to mess about with a wind deflector to stop cabin turbulence. With this generation version, you can even erect one behind the front seats at the press of a button. Otherwise, the 911 experience is much as it is in the coupe version and remains as addictive as ever. There simply is no other car in the world that I get into and feel as ready to confidently drive, and drive hard. It could be down to the ideal driving position, the perfectly supportive seat, or the way that the extremities of the car are so easy to place, or a combination of all that mixed with the adrenaline that goes with a drive in any legendary sports car. Here we're focusing on the first two rungs of the 911 Cabriolet performance ladder, the Carrera and the Carrera S, both predictably more powerful than they were in their previous model generations, despite Carrera buyers being offered a flat 6, de-stroked from 3.6 to 3.4 litres. You still get 350 brake horsepower though, 5 bhp more than before, and good enough to get you to 62 in as little as 4.6 seconds. Here though, we're focusing on the S model that most customers choose. Still 3.8 litres in size, but pumping out 400 brake horsepower and quick enough to demolish the 62 mile an hour barrier in as little as 4.3 seconds on the way to 190 miles an hour. That's if you specify the PDK double clutch auto gearbox that many customers will prefer. A unit almost all buyers will want to control with the proper tactile feeling paddle shifters that Porsche now provides in place of the nasty little steering wheel switches offered when this transmission was first launched. It's a 7-speed setup, as is, very unusually, the manual transmission alternative, a world first. To be fair, it would perhaps be more accurate to call the stick shift option a 6-speeder with an extra overdrive top, since if you leave the car in 7th gear, even a gentle motorway gradient is going to see you changing down. Get used to it though, and it works well. Changing gear, in fact, is something 911 owners get quite used to. In an era where we're used to turbo-type engines delivering great slabs of torque, of pulling power low down in the rev range, the flat 6 on offer here is intentionally quite different in character, delivering its performance in layers, faithful to the successive motor racing formula of increasing power through higher revs. You need to be up around 3,500 RPM before the car really bucks forward. Then it pulls lustily again between 4,500 and 5,000 RPM before reaching a full-blooded crescendo above 6,500 RPM. That's the point where you're just getting to the stage of exercising everything that the engine has to offer. Hard work? Yeah, perhaps, but it's brilliant fun when you're doing it. As with previous generation 911s, this one offers both Carrera and Carrera S buyers the choice of either 2 or 4-wheel drive layouts, with the all-wheel drive system I'm trying here able to divert up to 100% of the power to either axle in just 100 milliseconds to maximize traction, an indicator on the dashboard showing where the power is being directed at any given time. Purists still sniff at Carrera 4 models, but having tried this one back-to-back with a 2-wheel drive variant on the slippery slope at Porsche's Silverstone test track, I'd personally want one in our changeable climate. Which brings me to the aspect of this car that die-hard 911 fans will approach with the most caution: the electromechanical power steering system. Steering, you see, is sacrosanct to enthusiasts of this car who love the way that the old hydraulic setup got the wheel writhing in your hands throughout the driving experience. All very nice, but all very 90s. Hydraulic systems milk the engine of power, even when you're doing nothing with the wheel. Electric ones don't. So the Porsche people got on and developed the very best electric steering system in the world. No, it doesn't have the leather-stitched wheel jiggling in your hands quite like before, but neither does it feel like you're at the wheel of a PlayStation game either. The response direct, well-weighted, and with fine feedback. Thank goodness for that. There are 2 other really important high-tech developments on this car, and both majorly contribute to the astonishing speed at which you can now go around corners. One reason why a 991 Series 911 can lap the Nürburgring Nordschleife an astonishing 14 seconds quicker than its very capable predecessor. Let's start with PDCC, that's Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control, standard on this Carrera S and optional on the entry-level model. It's an active roll compensation system that detects the very instant the car begins to roll when cornering, eliminating it almost entirely. Hit a bump mid-bend and the car just shrugs it off and continues on as if nothing had happened. It's almost eerie. Also standard on this S model is PTV, that's Porsche Torque Vectoring, which uses either a mechanical or an electronically controlled rear differential lock and selectively brakes the inside rear wheel through sharp bends, firing the car on towards the next corner like a bullet from a gun. Brilliant. If you own the previous 997 Series 911, you'll already be familiar with the other key electronic driving aid on offer here, PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management, which offers active continuous damper control to create either firmer or more supple ride quality with a choice of two settings, normal or sport. It's activated via this button here. Again, it's standard on the S, optional on the ordinary Carrera, but both sets of buyers will need to pay extra if they want to mate it to the optional Sport chassis, which can lower the car by 20mm and offers an aerodynamics package for reduced lift and more downforce. And there's already 880 Newton meters of that, thanks in part to an automatically activating rear spoiler that helpfully alerts police patrols to your speed when it rises at 75 miles an hour, then falls again when the speed drops below 50 miles an hour. But then this is a car designed to be driven very fast indeed. Preferably in the sport mode, you can now happily select more of the time, a setting that offers more agile engine control and quickens the changes if you've got a PDK automatic version like the car I have here. Opt as I would for the extra cost Sport Chrono package, which includes a launch control function for PDK owners, as well as this lovely center dash stopwatch. And you can go a step further with this system thanks to an extra Sport Plus setting down here, specifically designed for circuit use and able to slash a further 0.2 seconds from the 0 to 62 miles an hour sprint times. Me being me, I couldn't resist the temptation to try it on my favourite back road, and I'm guessing that you'll be wanting to do that too. Activate it and all hell breaks loose. Behind you, the dynamic engine mounts developed for the track-orientated GT3 model that come as part of the Sport Chrono package switch to their stiffest mode for a tauter and sportier damping and chassis setting. And if you've specified a car with the other high-tech dynamic gadgetry I've mentioned, it'll all automatically now follow suit, as the dynamic chassis control, the torque vectoring system, the active suspension management, even the optional dynamic lighting system that adjusts itself according to Spyder conditions, all configure themselves instantly into red mist mode. Brilliant. Traditionally, the Porsche 911 has always offered buyers one of the most distinctive shapes on the road, or at least it has in fixed top form. The Cabriolet version, though, has long lacked the same visual uniqueness, for until the launch of this 7th generation model series, the designers were unable to replicate the distinctive sweeping roof curvature that has always set the coupe version apart. No longer. Thanks to a cleverly designed panel bow top, this now looks every inch a proper 911, the fabric roof tensioned in an elegant arc from the front window frame to the convertible top compartment. This is still the most compact car in its class, with the curvy shape and the trademark wide arch wings both present and correct. Perhaps the evolutionary styling undersells quite how dramatically different the engineering that underpins this 7th generation model series is. 90% of the ingredients are different after all. Still, 911 buyers tend to be a conservative bunch, and if the aesthetic continuity protects the resale values of the old 997 generation car, That's going to make a lot of loyal customers very happy indeed. It's a bigger car than before, with a wider track, less overhang at the front and rear, and a ride height that sits at 3 to 4 millimeters closer to the ground in cabriolet form. There's a slippery 0.30 CD drag factor and a lightweight approach too, with the use of aluminium steel composite construction that has made the body up to 18% more torsionally rigid, yet shaved up to 60 kilograms from its total bulk. Some of the most obvious changes are at the rear, where the triple slatted engine cover and the slit-like LED rear lights are the most obvious changes from the previous generation model. The front revisions are a little more subtle, with reshaped, larger side air intakes and repositioned door mirrors. Onto that redesigned hood, made up of 4 magnesium segments and able to be raised or lowered in 13 seconds, either with a button on the key fob or by pressing a switch between the front seats, the one you'll be using when operating the top at speeds of up to 31 miles an hour. When retracted, it fits into an impressively small space below a neater compartment lid that now extends back to the rear spoiler for a cleaner look. Top down, the other clever innovation you'll notice is the built-in electric wind deflector that really cuts down on cabin wind buffeting when you're not using the rear seats. There's no need here for the fiddly extra cost contraptions you have to have with rivals. Really awkward things you're normally forced to store in the boot, then slot into place like a Meccano set as you break your fingernails on the catches. Instead here, the deflector glides out of a space above the top of the rear seats and slots itself into place at the push of a button, something you can do at speeds of up to 75 miles an hour. It's one of the things that would really sell me this car. And at the wheel, well, if you're familiar with the old 6th generation 997 series 911 model, you'll find that everything's changed, yet nothing is different. So as ever, you find yourself in front of a traditionally upright dash with an instrument cluster dominated by a large central rev counter, flanked by 2 circular dial spaces either side. But look a little closer and the changes start to become evident. For a start, it feels a slightly bigger car, as the windscreen is now a touch further away and you're hemmed in by a high centre tunnel. And then there are all the modern touches, the electronic handbrake and the readout to the right of the rev counter that isn't actually a dial at all, but instead turns out to be a high-resolution multifunction screen that can display anything from a sat-nav map to a G-forces meter. The rising centre console design echoes that used in the old Carrera GT supercar and includes a larger 7-inch colour touchscreen for the Porsche communication management system that controls a vast array of different functions. Most importantly, everything is of significantly higher quality than before, truly a cabin now worthy of a 6-figure sports car. Unlike Porsche's other convertible model, the smaller Boxster, 911 buyers get a pair of occasional rear seats, and I'd hope that the 100mm increase in wheelbase that you get in this 7th generation design might have made them more usable. Sadly not. Though there's a bit more headroom here than there was before with the top up, a marginal 6mm more legroom means that they're still really for child use only, though for a family buyer like me, very useful at that. The extra wheelbase does tell, however, when it comes to boot space. Here, as with every 911, located beneath the bonnet. Where, as with the coupe model, you get 135 litres on offer. At least you do with the 2-wheel drive models. In Carrera 4 variants, you'll need to bear in mind that the space available falls to just 125 litres. Either way, I'd advise that you specify the tailored 911 luggage set so that you can make the most of it. The charms of 911 Cabriolet motoring come at an £8,500 premium over the cost of the equivalent coupe version, with prices for this 7th generation open-top model starting at just over the £82,000 mark for a 3.4 litre Carrera and just over £92,000 for a pokier 3.8 litre Carrera S. That makes the base version a cool £36,000 more expensive than Porsche's smaller but equally fast Boxster S convertible sports car. Whether you choose your 911 in Carrera or Carrera S form, there's a £2,400 premium to pay if you want it with the PDK auto gearbox rather than the standard manual 7-speeder. And you'll need to add around £5,000 to the cost of your chosen variant if you want the Carrera 4 version with the reassurance of all-wheel drive. So, bearing all that in mind, is a 911 Cabriolet really good value for money? To answer that question, I'm going to focus on the most affordable Carrera and Carrera S versions, cars like the one I've got here. Though bear in mind that for better-heeled buyers with six-figure budgets, Porsche has long offered its top 911 turbo model with the Cabriolet body style. So, Carrera and Carrera S, do they make sense as a buying proposition? Well, it depends upon your perspective. There'll always be lesser brands offering cheaper open-top sports cars that look similarly quick. But most Porsche customers tend to pay these models only a cursory glance, secure in the knowledge that 911 excellence can be theirs at a useful saving over what they would see as more credible alternatives. After all, starting prices for similarly performing cars like the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Roadster, the Maserati Grand Cabrio and the Audi R8 Spyder sit in the £95,000 to £102,000 bracket. For the sake of completeness though, I'll touch on some of the other alternatives so that you can see where this model stands in its market. Let's start with the options if you're looking at the 3.4 litre Carrera Cabriolet variant. It's certainly a more sporting choice than the kind of Mercedes SL 500 or Jaguar XKR convertible that would cost a little more, or the kind of BMW 650i M Sport convertible that would cost only a little less. What else? Well, for around 15% less than a Carrera Cabriolet, you could go just as fast in an Audi RS5 Cabriolet, and for around 30% less, match the same kind of performance in, say, a Chevrolet Corvette convertible or a base Jaguar F-Type, so there are surely cheaper options. But, as I suggested at the beginning, many Porsche buyers don't really see cars like these as being in the same class as a 911, and you can't argue with the reality that both will cost you more at resale time. Okay, so what about rivals for the 400 brake horsepower 3.8 litre Carrera S Cabriolet that I'm testing here? Well, again, it depends on what you'd see as a direct rival. You'd actually pay more than Porsche asks here to go not very much quicker in a BMW M6 convertible or a Jaguar XKR S convertible, and a lot more to get yourself into a Mercedes SL63 AMG. Again, Jaguar's F-Type might tempt away some. The fastest 488 brake horsepower V8 S version is a fraction quicker than a Carrera S and about 15% cheaper, but it's also thirstier, dirtier, has only 2 seats and comes only with an auto gearbox. Your call. If, having considered all of this, you conclude, as many have, that there's nothing quite like a 911 Cabriolet, then whichever mainstream version you choose, Carrera or Carrera S, manual or PDK automatic, you're going to have a right to expect a pretty comprehensive equipment list for your not inconsiderable outlay. And by and large, you shouldn't be disappointed, though it is a bit surprising to find features like Bluetooth compatibility, floor mats and cruise control on the options list. Still, the standard equipment level on all models is better than it used to be, running to a leather interior, sports seats, automatic 2-zone climate control, bi-xenon headlights, a 7-inch colour touchscreen for the Porsche communication management system with satellite navigation, and a universal audio interface offering MP3 connectivity, an AUX interface in the glove compartment, and connecting you into a 235-watt 9-speaker sound system. And as you'd want on something of this value, every car leaves the factory fitted with a Porsche vehicle tracking system, a security package approved to Thatcham Category 5 standard. Plus, customers also get the opportunity to stretch the legs of their new purchase under expert supervision and in relative safety, courtesy of a Porsche Experience Centre course at Silverstone. Most 911 Carrera Cabriolet customers though find another £10,000 for the S model that I have here, and it's easy to see why. The extra cash gets you a fair bit, along with the extra power. Specifically, you get the tools to make the very best use of it. Porsche Active Suspension Management, PASM, and Porsche Torque Vectoring, PTV, with rear limited slip differential, plus a very nice set of 20-inch alloy wheels. Once you factored those must-have features onto a Carrera, you might as well have thought about an S model anyway. Now, whichever Carrera Cabriolet you choose, there are two other very important features to specify. The first is the PDCC Porsche Dynamic Chassis Control Active Roll Compensation System, with its even more direct steering feedback. For me, it's one of the most important recent pieces of driving technology. And if you've got this, you'll probably have ordered a car with suspension management and torque vectoring too, in which case you'll want my second must-have optional feature, the Sport Chrono package. This includes an extra Sport Plus setting that automatically sets up all these driving aids to high alert when you're ready for a challenging drive, and gives you the option of a grin-inducing launch control function if your car has a PDK gearbox. What other options need to be on your radar? The lowered sports chassis to go with the PASM suspension management system? Probably. The steering wheel paddles to go with the PDK gearbox? Certainly. And even though it's not cheap, I'd still want the sports exhaust system, recognisable by its 4 rearward pipes, which bypasses part of the silencing at the press of a button. And when I wasn't listening to the roaring engine note, I'd want to be listening to an upgraded audio system, perhaps the 8-channel 445 watt Bose surround sound setup I have here, or even better to the 800 watt Burmester top end system that'll please the strictest audiophiles. Other possible ways to spend rather a lot more money include the very pricey PCCB Porsche ceramic composite brakes, recognisable by their yellow calipers, essential if you're going to be regularly using your car on track days. Then there's the Power Steering Plus system, which increases the assistance at lower speeds to help urban-based drivers. And the PDLS Porsche Dynamic Light system, which lights your way around corners and alters the beam to suit different speeds and urban, motorway or country conditions. And talking of lights, a really nice interior touch is the light design package that bathes the cabin in tasteful shades of LED. What else? A choice of sports seats, 14 or 18 way adjustable, electric steering column adjustment, keyless entry and go, the upgraded TV tuner, the TPM tyre pressure monitoring system, the top view video parking setup. You may even be prepared to pay for the badge delete option if you're a shy retiring type. Tick just a few of those options on a car like this Carrera S and you'll be getting up towards a 6-figure total asking price. One thing you won't have to deliberate too much about is safety. 2 full-sized airbags are triggered in 2 stages, depending on the severity of the accident. Then there's the POSIP Porsche Side Impact Protection System that incorporates built-in thorax side airbags at the front, head airbags in the door panels and side impact protection in the doors. There are also ISOFIX child seat mountings, a safety steering column and a sensor that detects an impending rollover and automatically activates the head airbags and belt tensioners as the redesigned automatic rollover protection system springs into life milliseconds later. To ensure that hopefully you'll never need any of this, there are of course all the usual electronic braking and traction aids, including an adaptive brake lighting system that flashes to warn following traffic if you should need to suddenly slam on the anchors. Best of all, you get what is quite simply the finest stability control system in the business, the PSM Porsche Stability Management Setup. The innovative lightweight body of this 7th generation 911 was redesigned from the ground up not only to ensure greater torsional rigidity, it's up 18% in this Cabriolet, but also to lighten the curb weight by up to 60 kilograms for soft top variants. That's helped to create an efficient set of running cost figures that get within 2 to 3% of those of equivalent coupe versions, models that are now only about 70 kilograms lighter. Like all 991 generation 911s, this one benefits from the basic efficiency of the direct injection power plant and the car's excellent aerodynamics, building blocks to which are added efficiency measures such as electromechanical power steering, low rolling resistance tyres, and a start-stop system to cut the engine when you don't need it, say when you're stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. The PDK gearbox also helps to improve economy and reduce emissions. Specify a Carrera Cabriolet with a PDK box and you're getting a 350 brake horsepower car that will return 33.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and emit just 198 grams per kilometre of CO2. The first time an open-top 911 has dipped beneath the magic 200 grams per kilometre of CO2 barrier. In the case of the Carrera S Cabriolet with its 400 brake horsepower 3.8 litre direct injection engine, economy when paired with the optional PDK is improved by 14% or 5 miles to the gallon to 31.7 miles to the gallon combined, despite 15 brake horsepower more power than the previous generation version could offer. Now that equates to CO2 emissions of just 210 grams per kilometre. About the same as some much humbler sports convertibles, and about 50% better than rival Maserati Grand Cabrio and Aston Martin V8 Roadster models. A gear up change indicator on the dash is included to help owners get somewhere near those kinds of returns on a regular day-to-day basis. And for PDK gearbox customers, Porsche engineers have also developed a clever coasting function that disengages the engine from the transmission if the driver comes off the throttle, so that your car continues on its way idling with obvious efficiency benefits. It's all very smart, and I can see all the arguments for why PDK transmission is a better choice for this car. Imagine a top-level racing car with a manual gearbox these days, after all. Despite that, and maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I still can't help but feel that a manual gearbox remains the right choice for such a driver-orientated sports car. If you agree, then accept the fact that fuel and CO2 returns from this less efficient way of changing gears will be about 10% worse than you'd achieve with a PDK-equipped model. I should also point out that if you go for the Carrera 4 all-wheel drive models, cars that must carry around about 50 kilograms of extra weight, then your running costs will be hit by around about 5%. What else? Well, being a new model, residual values are certain to be strong. Some compensation for the fact that Porsche can only do so much to lower what will be a steep set of Group 49 or 50 insurance premiums. The development of the Porsche 911 from the previous 997 model to this 991 generation version is the biggest step forward in the car's history. That much we know. What won't be so well publicised is just how much better this open-top version is when compared to its direct predecessor. Though it at last looks almost identical to the coupe when the shapely hood's in place, the Cabriolet is now a car that emerges from the hard-top model's shadow as an entity in its own right. It's a more convincing convertible car than ever before, the sleeker profile matched with better mechanical refinement and a more luxurious interior. And if there were dynamic differences between coupe and cabriolet in the previous 911 generation, they've been almost totally eradicated here. As a result, there's now nothing quite as rewarding as this car in its chosen segment. But then there's never been anything quite like a 911. That's why so many people, myself included, love it so much. As with the coupe model, Porsche is banking on the fact that the excellence of this car will help to simplify the decision over whether to commit to the significant outlay involved in buying it. With this much style matched to this much substance, you'd have to be tempted.